Hey guys, Thomas Solo Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. If you end up enjoying this full review, then please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. And also consider supporting the channel by looking at those links in the description. The first will head you over to my Discord, the second over to my Patreon, third over to my PayPal. Any donations are greatly appreciated, help support the channel, can make me review certain things, play certain games, etc., etc. Shilling will be recalled at the end of the review. And with that out of the way, let me get into the movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. So, for this particular movie, I decided, while I did technically write notes, I'm not going to bother pulling them up. So that should probably specify that this movie isn't particularly all that great. Even good. So, in this current year of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, these four individuals, by the names of Lila, Dante, and curly-haired woman, Layla and her sister Minna, I don't remember. It's, bossy older sister character, are essentially these four individuals who are looking to move to this location in this old town. They are apparently not only specifically content creators, but specifically they are content creators looking to expand their horizons, build upon this old town settlement, and with their specifically chef and intended abilities. So they start to make their way over, and as they are traveling there, they get stopped over by this man named Richter, who gives them a little bit of early guff, but later on in the movie helps them a little bit as the movie progresses. But for the time being, as they drive further along, they bump into some cops who gives them the little bit of a warning about what this town's like. So, for all intents and purposes, cops are just like, hey, this is what you're getting into. Just be careful. That's actually, for a movie that's not that great, I actually kind of like the cops for the brief amount of time that they're in the movie. It's like, hey, we're just, I know we did technically pull you over, and that can be a little bit of a nuisance, but, we're just here to say, nice little welcome, tell you what you're about to, travel into. They gave them a little warning, so, more so for the movie audience to be like, hey, this is what you're going to be prepared in for, so hold on to your butts. And the four take kindly to it and move on in. And once they arrive, when they reach the area in which they wish to re-procure, they notice a Confederate flag. So that's no good for them, because I guess I'm gonna just say the assumption is that they don't want, any implications. So they head inside the house, where they meet this old woman who they're trying to evict from this house. She's, according to them anyway, is not supposed to be there. And Dante seems to be among the four of them. The one who's, headhunting this little project the hardest, I guess. But she insists that they still own the place, and through the guff and muff, he brings over the cops that we saw earlier, and they take her in. She doesn't belong there, and the big lumbering man, aka Leatherface in this version, kind of goes with her when they bring them along. during their transport, one of the four, this blonde woman, Dante's girlfriend, whatever her name is, I actually don't know, heads with them just to make sure everything's all fine and dandy. During their transportation, however, things go terribly wrong when she fades from this world. She passes on, she dies. This causes Leatherface to go absolute berserk, killing the cop in the back first, using his own hand to snap it off and then drive it into his head. This causes the woman to freak out as the other guy sees this and tries to shoot. He too gets hit by, I forget what his kill is, but essentially his kill gets their vehicle crashed into some open field area where the blonde woman, is unconscious for a while. So the remaining three on the house, or, there in the other area, the older sister character, the main character, uses this time to make sure that their whole adventure here wasn't for a waste, and starts investigating the house alongside Dante, while the younger sister, Leela, or whatever her name is, I think it's like something like that, I'll just call her Leela because it's what I remember her being called, or something along those lines, sort of hangs around the town with Richter a bit, very briefly. Things of that nature. There's like a party bus coming in. And I'm guessing alongside the main investors, it's like a party group of people that are like all these newcomers and their first official guest or whatever that party's inclusion includes. At any rate, so Leatherface finishes his rampage by the blonde woman making her final little warning, which allows one of the guys who eventually hears this to call the woman from the original attack to, this is Leatherface's comeback attack, so, head on over if you're feeling encouraged, or whatever his message is. So she does so. She grabs a gun and makes her way over. Old lady, vintage character. And I can't believe they did this in the slew after the meta horror movie that is Scream 5, by having a meta-narrative character, or a vintage character, or legacy character, that's the word people love to use for this, come back, and not only just come back, but come back and die, which does happen in Scream 5, but, even though that hospital scene was broken, as I mentioned in that review, and subsequently in my notes I said it was a far more broken scene than I had mentioned, I at least gave enough credit to the character and initiated with that death, and I would still give him that level of credit because, again, he was withholding to his job as far as I was concerned. Again, there's still definitely things you could have done better with that as a protector. But in this obligation, we have this woman who survived this ordeal, so as far as I know, her job isn't a cop, or isn't a, someone who's meant to deal with this sort of situation, still drives in after being called, and still tries to take out Mr. Leatherface on her own accord, purely for vengeance, is the only thing that hits in this movie, and the consequences of that is death. as I mentioned. So just to point that out now. So, again, the job implications of that definitely change quite a bit of the reasonings of why you may, decide to head out into a dangerous scenario like this. So Leatherface, after his big initial attack on the four in the car, eventually makes his way back to the house. During their house exploration, which is nice and slow and steady, main character woman's older sister finds the note that makes it seem like they were actually in the wrong the entire time. So whoop-de-fucking-do, the whole point of this movie is mute, and their deaths are completely on them. They completely fucked up. They completely, everything is on them. They had no idea of this, apparently. So that's another thing against this movie, not for it, by the way. So yeah, the reasoning for them to come over here seems utterly stupid once it's revealed that they technically never even were supposed to do what they did, aka call the cops over and do that ordeal, making the mother, even more sickly than she was, and have Leatherface go absolutely batshit crazy. So yeah, they initially just sped up that process by however many months or days or whatever. Anyway, he makes his way back to the house, and he cuts up poor old Dante, which we see behind closed doors very briefly. Meanwhile, older sister hides upstairs, and when she tries to make her way back down, she sees the body of Dante drop, which makes her go into hiding. Leatherface makes his way up there and looks around, not seeing anything, not even seeing her, even though, if he looked to the left and down a little bit, he would have found her, but I guess he's not that smart, all things considered. Anyway, so she's essentially stuck there while he's making his way back down. She eventually overhears her sister starting to get worried, starting to get curious as to where she is. The younger sister makes her way over. Through it, she tries to escape through moving to the bed when he comes back up, and then comes back down, and then she tries to head back down, only to have him further his attack, his onslaught, or attempted onslaught, on her, and proceeding to do so while she makes her way underneath the floorboard after he shoves her instead of, just killing her right then and there, which he probably could have done, all things considered. But didn't do so, so she manages to survive for now. So she's underneath the house, essentially. She manages to crawl out with the help of her sister. The two run back to the bus after, the woman there essentially is like, hey, don't go out there, don't go out there. Now, this is quite upsetting. The bus, and I don't know why a bus would ever be set up like this, the bus only has the front door. Now, I don't know why that's the case. Every bus that I'm even conceivably aware of has the back door, a back door, but this bus apparently doesn't have a back door, apparently. And again, I'm not really sure why, as Leatherface makes his presence known on the bus, and these people who see this man wielding a chainsaw their response, and I kid you not, is to strictly hold up their phones and hope that Leatherface is scared of being, canceled or whatever. And that's how stupid these people are, so, their deaths, as Mr. Leatherface decides that he doesn't give two fucks about being canceled and, decides to let the bodies hit the floor. Quite literally, as he proceeds to kill the bus people one by one, and people have no means of escape. The sisters eventually crawl their way into the restroom. The restroom has like a thing above it. So that's their little way out of that situation, since, again, there's no back door. The woman that kept telling them to get back out, or, stay there, she tried to make her way out one of the closer windows to the front, instead of, opening the front door and running outside that way. She seemed like she had enough time to do so, but she opened up the window instead, and tried to crawl out, leaving her less space to move, by the way, giving Leatherface more time to catch up to her, and more time to split her in half, which is what he does do to her. So, again, more stupidity. The sisters make their way out through the roof. Leatherface overhears this. As they make their way, they start running off. They see a car moving in, and they're like, what the hell? They kind of get escorted into it after, making they kind of rush their way over there regardless. And it turns out to be the old woman, the survivor. As I had mentioned earlier, she made her way all the way here after seeing the carnage from beforehand. So Leatherface eventually makes his way out. She proceeds to try to gun him out, which makes him a little bit more careful. And she tells them that they are not allowed to leave, aka using them as bait, essentially, as she tries to procure her advantage of having shot him a few times, or however many times she officially shot him, only to do the stupidest thing you can do with a gun, and that is walk towards your thing that you are shooting, which is what she does. So she's also an idiot on top of everyone else in the everyone else in the bus being idiots, so she's also an idiot on top of everyone else being an idiot, making this a complete shit show of her moving towards her target with a gun, something you don't have to do if you're using a gun. Particularly, this gun is a rifle, by the way, so moving closer is completely unnecessary. The indication of which you should preferably do is stand where you were and just proceed to shoot as many times as you can perceivably shoot until the target is no longer moving, which is not what she does. She walks towards him like an idiot, and thus the consequences of her own actions of moving forward pay in full of her dying as she runs out of bullets, as barely he still has enough of not being hit well enough to impale her mid-chest with his vintage chainsaw that he has already by now, and whips her body, her corpse now, or her body at this point, away. This freaks the sisters out. The main sister, instead of doing what was told to her and driving away, she decides, fuck that noise, we're gonna drive into him, and we're gonna keep driving carelessly, and somehow swerve into a building, which gets both of them injured to the point of the main sister getting stuck, or I should say the older sister getting stuck instead. The younger sister gets out of the car, and proceeds to buff up in the way of saying, like, hey, I'm not gonna leave now that all of this has happened. She's been told the words of the woman. So she grabs some weapon of sorts, I believe, some other weapon, and tries to guide him away after being told to run away. She did so, but she looped back around the other way to shoot him in the back. So now the chase is on. And chase her he little does, as he uses his chainsaw in various manners, one of which includes throwing the chainsaw at her, leg style, and that is enough to knock her over and make her, crawl. Eventually, after the kerfuffles outside, they eventually make their way inside, the two of them, into this old theater that has all of these holes in this water and all this stuff going on. So he tackles her in the water eventually, after tricking her into playing his chainsaw and then being elsewhere. So he suddenly has the capacity to strategize now, all of a sudden. And tricks her, tackles her. She manages to get out of the water, though, so I guess it's fine for the time being. And when he returns, and she's, like, crawling to get to the gun, this is when I talked about how he slides the chainsaw against the floor, hits her back down, and as he's about to pick up his chainsaw and finish the job, the other older sister somehow, never cutting back to her, she was impaled in the leg, by the way, in the car, with a metal pipe. She somehow got out of that in time to get all the way over there to this theater, knowing their location, getting to her sister, shooting Leatherface in, the chest, into the water, giving them both chance and ample opportunity to escape. They thought firing at him into the water was enough, seeing him, quote-unquote, drown, was quite enough. So the two of them discuss that they want to leave. So they put the car in autopilot drive, or whatever that is, as the two discuss. As the car's going nice and slow, probably not the preferred method of, trying to escape a city that was just massacred. I would probably, leave it on auto, or, manually drive it, just to maximize your driving capacity while you're still in the town. Otherwise, you're going to get the ending that this movie gives you, which is the car is driving slowly on autopilot while the two are resting up, which gives ample opportunity for, you guessed it, Leatherface to make one final attempt, grabbing the older sister out from the car as the car is still moving. So this younger sister sees this transpire, sees Leatherface grab her, and with his vintage chainsaw, cut off her head. If only you had put it on manual and, did the smart thing and drive fastly out of that location instead of, depending on your car to drive uber slow. So slow that it would give ample opportunity for such a final shot to even occur. And that was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What an absolute fucking waste of a movie, if I have ever seen one. This is one of the worst horror movies I think I've ever seen, and that is saying a lot. Quite impressive to be this bad at delivering a movie. From characters being stupid to this whole situation just not being set up properly. Talking about really basic stuff here. And again, I hate to do it, but we gotta go over this again. So the first thing you need to do, for writers out there, if you want to avoid making something this terrible, let's go over some things that you can do to avoid making a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. First thing you want to do is make sure that the thing that you are establishing, the reason why a character is going somewhere, is not only set in stone, but cannot be reversed and makes the characters look stupid. That is not a good solution to your characters getting to a location. It makes your characters look dumb, it makes your characters look irresponsible, it makes your characters not look favorable to your audience. You're gonna have people look at your characters and say, good riddance that they're dead. That's not what you want from your horror movie experience. Again, you don't want to root for the bad guy more than you do for your characters. That is not the optimal way to make a good horror movie. So, that's the first thing you want to establish before anything else, well, in terms of basic plotting. The second thing you might want to do is consider making your characters a little bit more likable. The older sister's way too standoffish. Dante's alright, but he doesn't have much to really offer outside of just being a chef, unfortunately. The younger sister, she keeps saying that she's a nobody, and technically they do give her something to deal with. She survived some sort of other ordeal, and talking about how that surviving an outcome of that proportion made other people look to her and be like, hey, you need to, step up. And actually, quite funny, in terms of a main character, that's actually something I technically, on a subjective level, a feely-feel level, can connect to. You see, at some point in my life, I was hit by a car. In real life. This is an event that happened, and that obviously I survived. And after the fact, there definitely was a period of time where I felt like, man, I survived. It was a personal thing where I was mentally thinking to myself, like, man, I survived. I need to make something of my life. And while that hasn't panned out exceedingly well, considering that mainly I'm an unpaid YouTuber, except for when I get paid very little to do, when I do get support, very littly, but, so, support at the end of the review, as I mentioned. So please consider doing all that good stuff if you've even made it this far into the review. With that being said, yeah, her character is fine, actually. I would actually argue her character is fine. They give her enough of, she has that ordeal, and I can understand, I can relate to that ordeal on a personal level. That sort of, I guess, what you would call it, survivor's guilt. Surviving some sort of ordeal and feeling like, again, you have to do more in your living life to make up for, living through that type of situation. Hers was a bit more intense than mine. What looked to be some sort of shootout, but yeah, her character, again, is fine when you stroke it like that. But you need to, work on your other characters, not just your main character, in that regard, making sure that they have both flaws, which is important to have, have characters have flaws, but they have to have things that are good about them, that you can be like, hey, I'm willing to cheer for that character because of this, because of their kindness, or they're compassionate, or they're determined, they're smart, they think of ways to get out of situations, like when they're in the house or whatever, they're resourceful. All of these things that you can actually, and you have to combine some of these together. You can't just do one and expect people to just suddenly cheer. You should probably, again, think of ways to build off of these little pieces and put them together into a solid, well-constructed character. Because that's the type of character you're going to actually want to root for in a situation where maybe it's a bit more gray, the situation at hand, instead of being it, this was literally their entire fault for not looking into this deeply enough. As this script would have you believe. And that's not a good thing. Again, you don't want to write material that makes you question your character's arrival in the first place. So, all of that avoided. In terms of a score, I'm going to go ahead and give this movie a 2 out of 10. It's really, really bad. Again, one of the lowest scores I think I've given on my channel in terms of a horror movie. So, definitely not good. Wouldn't recommend. And that is my full review of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. And if you ended up enjoying this more so rant than a review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to a Discord, second to my Patreon, third to my PayPal. Any donations are deeply appreciated. Help support the channel, can make me review specific movies, maybe something I missed, maybe something I haven't checked out yet. Stuff of that nature. Can have me also play specific games, like my Albion Let's Play, which was Patreon/PayPal supported, so consider checking that out if you haven't already started doing that. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye!